right. Hi, Zoe.
Hey, Fine. Happy Friday.
Yes, I know. Finally. Trust you've had a great week.
Yes, it's been a good one.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our very first live broadcast of Fridays with FOB. And we're really excited to have you here. So, good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you are connected with us around the world. We have our special guest today that we've all been looking forward to. She's coming with the answers to so many questions that we've been walking through in the last couple of weeks. So, Zoe, would you like to introduce yourself to us, please?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'd just like to say I'm delighted to be here, Fine. Thank you for asking me to join you. So my name's Zoe Wilson. I work at Avanade as a senior director in our Europe modern work business. Although I've also been leading globally on all things M365 Copilot and Gen AI in that modern work environment for the last few months as well. I come from a technical SharePoint background originally, but I've been in leadership roles in tech for the last few years. I'm a Microsoft MVP for M365, and I'm also a regional director as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I think something you forgot to mention is you're also an amazing mentor to a lot of us as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to, so when you get into leadership roles, I think it's so important to create the space for people to follow and to help people develop and to try to inspire them and help them see what's possible for women working in tech.
Yes, thank you so much for inspiring myself and a lot of young ladies out there. All right, so let's talk a bit about responsible AI. This is an important topic for everyone right now, and yes, there's a whole buzz. Everyone wants to get started, but we decided to start off with this because it's important that you start and you start off properly, right? Rather than having to go back and trying to fix things. So, um, when we talk about the core principles of AI, what would be one or two of them that you would like to talk a bit more around?
So I think for me, one of the ones that I feel really strongly about is the ethical use of AI. And there are tons of examples of how this doesn't work, that particularly impact women as well. And I was reading about this a few days ago. AI porn is so easy to make. It is possible to go to websites with pictures of women and upload them and have it generate an image of them with no clothes. And this rise of AI generated porn normalizes the use of a woman's image without her consent. And I was doing a little bit of research on this earlier just to understand how bad it is. And actually, in 2019, 96% of deep fake images online were non consensual pornography, and the vast majority of those are women. So, to me, that is a prime example of why it's so important to think about the ethical use of AI, because um, that's not it. That's absolutely not it.
Yeah. Wow, that's another like another another level. And I mean, and I can imagine that the list can go on and on. And one of the previous episodes, what we're talking about was, can I or should I? Is it enough to say, oh, because technology is so strong, it can do so many things, but does that make you right? And that's why we're here to talk about responsible AI and share our views around it. Okay, so let's talk a bit more around the bias part of AI. What's your feel about inclusiveness? How can we address that?
Yeah, so bias is another really interesting one as well, and there's a few different layers to this. First of all, one of the things that really concerns me about bias in AI is where you get things like racial profiling. because the AI is trained on data that is skewed by what's happened in the past, and then makes decisions or reaches conclusions unfairly based on the bias in the data that it's been given. So that, that is an absolutely massive concern. And then another thing that worries me from a bias perspective is, if you look at the large language models that are creating so much buzz at the moment, the vast majority of stuff they were trained on doesn't necessarily reflect you and me, because it will have been trained on stuff that was generated by, or that is the opinion of, white men. And this is a problem. This is a real concern, because we need to make sure that when we're bringing more of AI into the things that we do every day, that that it is inclusive, that it is representative of all of us. And I'm not overly confident myself that it is at the moment. I don't know what your view on that is.
Yeah, I also think so. And a friend of mine shared an article with me a couple of weeks back where an Asian lady had taken a picture of herself and put it on an AI system, and she said, "Oh, I want this picture to look more professional." And it returned a picture of a white woman, you know.
Mm.
So I was like, well,
Not
that's
appropriate. Yeah, so it's a
we're
problem.
not there yet. We're certainly not there yet. But I think it's great to see that a lot of these topics are being spoken about, because the more we speak about them, the more we are aware of the issue, and then more conscious of ensuring that we are able to create the systems to be more inclusive and less biased and fair as well. Do you have
Yeah.
some thoughts around the fairness of the system at the moment?
Yeah, so I think again, and I think this comes back to the racial profiling bit, because that, that's demonstrating bias, but it's also impacting fairness as well. Because the more that we start to integrate AI into our systems, into the processes and the way that decisions are made, we need to make sure both that, that any bias has been accounted for and addressed in the system, and we need to make sure that what it's doing is fair in how it's treating people, in the impact that it's having, on whoever's affected by those decisions that are made. I think there's so much potential with this technology, but these are some of the really fundamental concerns and issues that we need to address. And one of the things that worries me a little bit at the moment is that, there's such a rush to try to solve the world with AI, that there's, again, part of me that's worried that people are putting profit over people, because
Mhm.
everyone's trying to get, like, the most killer solution out there, the thing that's going to generate them loads of money. And for me, responsible AI is so important in making sure that whatever we do, we're really intentional, and that we're addressing all of these concerns, and that we're treating people fairly.
Yeah. All right. That said, I think there's a role that every organization needs to play in this, as we all start to see the hype of AI grow more and more. Um, how do you think organizations can help both their developers, because we have the developers behind the scene, the AI developers, machine learning developers, putting all of these things together, the data engineers, and also we have the users as well. But we'll start off with the developers. How do you think organizations can help in terms of ethics? Because in one of the previous articles, I said ethics sometimes can be a bit difficult to define, because what you think is inappropriate, so another person may be like, well, I don't really see a big deal in that. So how can organizations start to define what this is and help their developers and the software engineers along those lines?
So I think for me, it comes down to making it specific to the organization. So, starting this AI journey, or not even starting because AI has been around for ages, but starting this
Yes.
next wave of this AI journey in a way that's really intentional, thinking about what that data and ethical AI risk framework looks like for the organization. And this will be tailored to their specific industry, to the types of business that they do, and the regulations that they need to comply with. And it will also be tailored to their specific values as well, because the guidance that they're giving to developers has to be aligned with the values of the company, and it needs to articulate really clearly the ethical standards that developers should follow, and have a recommended governance structure as well, and make it really, we have to make it really easy for people to do the right thing. So, and that includes having this governance framework, the processes that people need to follow, and the standards really well defined, and then a QA process as part of this as well, so that there are checks and balances to make sure that what the developers are doing are the right thing. And it is the responsibility of the organization, because if we just let developers go at it without that guidance, we're potentially setting them up to fail, and the impact of that could be quite serious.
I completely agree with you on that one. It's there has to be we have to have those guardrails in place that would carefully guide the developers and help them to know, okay, because you are like an amazing developer and the system is so great, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should,
Mm.
create um whatever it is you're creating, because you're then stepping beyond the bounds of the technology itself, right? And I also think that as the like we shouldn't rush out with the products. We should let the product stay a bit longer, like in the beta stage, because by doing that, like we're testing for a longer period of time, and then any unethical thing can also be seen, and be addressed very, very early on. Um, I think the a feedback mechanism is also important, because it may not be possible to catch it all just before the system goes live. But I like the way you can see, like, as we start to use different AI tools, there's that way you can give feedback to say, oh, I don't like this response. I found this offensive. And I think that also helps improve things behind the scenes. Okay,
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah.
yeah. I think the other thing as well that needs to be part of that. So that, there needs to be guidance for users as well around kind of what to expect.
Yes.
And they should be part of that kind of QA and testing process as well. And as part of that testing, I'd like to see people testing for things like bias and fairness, and just that kind of general behavior. There's a
Yeah.
really good book called Human Plus Machine, which is a few years old now. It was, it predates the kind of Gen AI buzz we've had in the last year. But one of there's a few things I really liked in that book. But one of the things that they talked about was explainability, and the fact that as the AI algorithms and models become more complex, the explainability of it will become more challenging. But it's really important to actually be able to explain how or why the AI is reaching a certain conclusion, because that, when you think about it from an ethical point of view, you need to understand why the AI is telling you to do a certain thing or giving you a certain output. And I think that's something that developers, particularly AI developers who are actually building models and fine tuning and things like that, they need to think about that explainability, and how to handle that when it comes to things like regulatory requirements, and some countries who might have requirements to not be able to do sentiment analysis and things like that, because they see it
Yeah.
as an infringement
Mm,
of human privacy. So yeah, I think thinking through all those things is important.
it is. It is. To look into the a bit from the user perspective. So it's talking a bit around the developers and the various things that we could do to help them. But for the users, how would you help them use this system? Like, what are the things that the organizations can do to help them use the systems in a more responsible way?
So from a user perspective, I think there are two sides to this. One is helping them understand the purpose of the system, how to use it, what types of things they should get out of it, and what not to use it for as well.
Mm,
And if I look at some of the work that we've been doing internally with things like Copilot, we've given people really clear guidance on um, that what not to use it for, not to use it for any kind of personal data or anything like that, nothing that's sensitive. So I think helping people understand those boundaries is really important. But where an AI system is actually using their data as well, if it's producing things based on stuff they've produced, stuff they've done, their data, I think it's really important that we can explain to them what it's looking at and what it's not looking at. Because otherwise, it just creates all of this fear and uncertainty. Am I being spied on? What is this being used for? So there's the messaging for how to use it safely and fairly, and also what's being processed about them as well.
yes, that's really important. I was on a call with someone recently, and he was like, "I still have trust issues with this whole like I still have trust issues. I don't completely trust the fact that it's not going where it should not be going, and it's not saying what it shouldn't be saying or saying what it shouldn't be saying. So I think that the first, big thing, especially as the GA is coming soon for Microsoft Copilot, would be trust. We need to get the users comfortable with the system, right? And then probably maybe having some responsible AI champions around in little buckets all over the organization would also help build that trust um, around the usage for our users. Um, yeah, well, I think I would say largely agreeing with you. Once the framework is in place, from the top down, the leadership team, they're clear as to what ethical means for our organization, and then passing that message, round the organization will be easier because it's kind of very clear. So I think that's one of the important things that every organization should have in place now as they start to think about going a step further with AI. That's really interesting. So I think we have a question in the chat. Let's just take a quick pause. There's something around yes, and we have a lot of people just agreeing with you. Ethical use is very, very important. What can be done is really scary. So ethical use is really something that we should all be talking about. So someone says responsible AI will it be used by companies or the mass market?
Um, so I think responsible AIs. I think enterprise organisations have a responsibility. I think as a society, the potential impact of this is so great that we all have a responsibility as well. And for me, if I look at like the potential for the biggest impact for AI, I'm looking to the tech giants. I'm looking to. I mean, Microsoft are all over responsible AI, but I'm looking to the Facebooks, the Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now. I'm looking to all of these big tech companies to be responsible in the things that they do, the way that they process data, and the impact that they have on people. But it is going to be a societal level challenge that everybody needs to be aware of. But I think where we need to actually see this put in practice is at that organisation level.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That sounds good. Let me see. So let's so we looked at the developers, we looked at the users, we looked at how leadership team can help us with it. What do you think the learning journeys would be like for, because like a lot of people are like, first of all, there's that initial fear around AI is going to take my job, and then there's the fear of, okay, AI may not take my job, but how do I start to get a hang of this whole Gen AI? And like 20 years back, as Alex said in our last session, people were all trying to learn how to use Google Rights, like how to search for things properly. I would search for something, I wouldn't find it, and someone else would find it like literally 2 seconds. So what are your thoughts around learning for like users in general? What do you think we should do to prepare for this? Or it's here already anyway. So to brace up and face it.
Yeah, so I think this again, it needs to be organisation wide. So it needs educating and upskilling of all employees. And I think that point that you made around fear is this coming from my job? Sorry, my cat is being very naughty. I think that point around is AI coming from my job it's a really valid one, because on the one hand we've got so much potential for AI embedded in work to change and reinvent organizations, but that will only happen if people can trust the solutions and they can understand what's in it for them. So for me, there's a few different levels to this. One is that kind of um, cultural enablement, where people need to understand the benefits and the opportunities that this will give them. It's the training that people will need, both in terms of the ethical use and responsible use of AI, what they should and shouldn't do with it, but also the more practical things like prompt engineering. I've seen with with ChatGPT, with Bing Chat Enterprise, with the different Copilot products, people have wildly different experiences because of how they prompt, because of how they give instructions. And this isn't a skill that will come naturally to people, not to all people anyway. So helping people understand how to get the best out of these natural language systems will require training and upskilling as well. And all of these things need to be wrapped into a program where we're addressing that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We're giving people the what's in it for them, that we're helping them see the opportunity. We're giving them the practical skills to be able to use this and get the value out of it, and they know how to do it in a way that's safe and responsible. And everybody needs this training. It needs to be everybody.
Yeah, yeah, 100% on that. So as we gradually draw to an end, we have the big announcements. I saw your LinkedIn post. I'm like, wow, I can't wait, and the news was all over the place. I think it was this time last week. Yes, so what's Microsoft's Copilot G going to look like?
So the Microsoft 365 Copilot will be launched on the 1st of November, which is sooner, I think, sooner than I was personally expecting. But it's incredibly exciting, because when I look at what it can do, I think it's going to be so impactful getting this in the hands of people. And because, like, when you think about office environments, nearly everybody uses M365. So, we've got organizations who are thinking about, like, the hard questions. How do we build Gen AI solutions? How do we bring this into the work that we do? What I see with Copilot is it's like the tip of the spear. It's the way to get Gen AI into the hands of everybody, to deliver those, like, productivity benefits and creativity benefits and all of those kinds of things, in a way that will drive value, and it will start to help people learn how to prompt and learn
Mm,
how to write them, learn how to craft things in a way that gets the results that they want. And I can see this being like the tip of the spear that just pulls all of these other Gen AI opportunities into how people work. So it was super, super exciting.
okay, so we're all looking forward to the 1st of November. That's great to hear. All right, so you all know Zoe. She's on LinkedIn. Her posts are always very, very insightful. So if you want to hear more about responsible AI, co-pilots, how your organization should get ready for the launch, the GA coming November 1st, what's this all about? How can he help you more? Get in touch with her on LinkedIn. And I think you're also on Twitter. Are you?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. My
That's
Twitter handle's in the name.
all right. That's her Twitter handle. So and we'd like to say a big shout out to all our friends. We're seeing you in the chat window, Trisha, Sarah, Jamie, David, and another David, Toby, Franca, Oshane. Thank you so much for joining us today on our responsible AI conversations. And if you have any questions which you didn't want to make public, you can also slip into any of our inboxes. We'll be happy to support you as much as we can. So do you have any parting words around responsible AI? Something we can all go home with?
So I guess just the last thing for me, where it does feel like we're at the start of this brave new frontier with all the advancements we've seen in the last few months, and there's this huge focus on all the great stuff that we can do. I think the last thing I'd like to say is please, please, please just remember, just because we can doesn't mean we should, and we need to make sure that we're thinking about people first, not profit first.
Thank you very much. So remember, just because you can doesn't mean you should. People first, not profit first. Thank you so much, Joey. Thank you everyone for joining us
Thanks,
and
everyone.
stay connected. Bye.